You ready, Denise?
Just give me just a second, please.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Morgan RDA in session, November 24th. First item on the agenda is discussion and our action to consider approving the following minutes of the RDA meeting. I'll take a motion on the minutes.
Mayor,
Tony?
I'll make a motion that we approve of the minutes of the RDA electronic meeting on June 23rd, 2020.
I'll second that.
A motion by Tony, second by Eric, that we pass the minutes of the Redevelopment Agency electronic meeting on June 23rd, 2020. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, so you never see the vote. All those in favor, show by raise a hand. I can see you. Tony?
Sorry.
Okay. Jeffrey? Can't see you yet. Okay. Jeffrey's yes. Motion passed with the 4 ayes. Second item, turn time over to Ty to discuss the 2020 annual report, which is in your packet.
Hey, thanks, Mayor. So we have a annual report that's due. We call it the November 1st report, because it helps us remember that it's due November 1st. But Zion's completed it again, and then I have a obligation to present it to the RDA. So that's why we're having a separate meeting. As you know, we just renewed the RDA at the end of 2019. So this is our first year into the new RDA with the new cost structure. So the report was finalized, and you can kind of just walk through that and see that the increment or the marginal value has continued to increase. It's increasing faster than the rest of the city. So our commercial investment is growing, it's paying off. And of course, commercial properties taxed at 100% of value, where homes have or primary residents aren't taxed at that same rate. So anyway, we've had some pretty successful year. As you know, we passed 3 projects. One is totally complete. It's the end building, and then Buzzies and the bank building are both nearing completion. It should be done by the end of the year. And so that reinvestment also gets taxed. So the value of their buildings will show up next year as they take occupancy and get reevaluated. Our incentive is based on if you remember, it's based on a 8-year payback based on the value and what they put into it. So that's a real rough estimate, but it won't take long for those properties to pay back what we've helped them with on the incentive. We also have the hotel that's part of the RDA that's scheduled to open the first week of December. So they're getting really close. Management's all getting trained up and getting the employees put together so that they can open. Just really appreciate the opportunity we've had to renew the RDA and the cooperation with the county and the school district to make a meaningful impact in this area. We also have the Young Automotive CDA that has about another year left in theirs, but it's just right on track with the amount that they've received back. So, and it's still, the value there is still incrementally increasing. year over year. So that is my report. Unless you have any questions.
Questions on the RDA? Dave, you're muted.
Thank you, Ray. It looks to me, if you look on page 6 there on the chart, that there may be some math problems going on. And just tell me if I'm looking at it wrong, but what are you laughing for?
Yeah, because if you go off of, so let me just tell you that there's a transition year, and that the way that the RDA breakout happened last year changed the formula. So one of the years it's based off of a 60-40. So if you go to the previous page, I think what that chart doesn't show you is the total value that you see on the tax register. So the total value of the area. So they don't necessarily interrelate to each other.
Yeah, that may make the difference then. If you took just the original base value and the current, for example, 2018, subtract the two, there's about $369,000 difference in what the margin value is. So if that accounts for it, we'll move on.
Yeah, so that's what it is. But just so you know, the mix changed. So when we renewed the RDA, then it went to 100% increment, and then we pay back the other entities at a 60. So the agency or the RDA retains 60% of the margin, and then we pay back, and we keep 25% of the increment. And last year, because it was the first year, the tax commission didn't have it all squared away, and we ended up with just a different valuation and payback. So the math doesn't work this time, but next year,
Okay.
it should settle. It should be comparable to the previous year exactly. So, but these numbers, yeah, they're based off of the independent tax value reports for year to year. So we're not comparable year over year, if that makes sense.
Each year, the marginal value of each year is off by about the same factor, about that 369 and some change.
Yep.
Okay.
So, and
accept that answer.
And what you'll see is that that some of this is a projected marginal value.
Sure.
What we're basing
The
off of.
2020, but yeah, understood.
So anyway, what happens is the tax commission settles all of the accounts and sends us the amount at the end of the year based on the actuals. And so
Sure. Yeah, the 2020's got to be a projection.
Yep.
Any other questions about the RDA at all? Got a couple, two more minutes and probably I'll wrap this up.
Okay.
Any other RDA questions or thoughts on the RDA?
Just, I mean, you could tell, just a thought, you could tell that the commercial street part is working, just looking at the increased values, but it looked to me like our revenue on the Young property was less than we anticipated. Any comment there? I think we paid it in the 60s and it was about 45.
Yeah, and it's been consistently that way since the beginning. So those projections were based on when it was created, and they mapped out the next 5 years, and then the increment back to the agency been tracking at the same, the same increment. But theirs is a time frame and a total dollar amount. So if they would have gotten more back sooner, then their project ends when they hit that cap dollar amount. And the other one's based on a time frame. So it's whatever comes first. And I think we're going to hit the years before we hit the total dollar amount that was owed back. So
Thank you.
Was that a 7-year project, or how many years was that, Mayor? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was, like I said, yes, Tony, as Ty mentioned, it'll be up next year.
Okay,
That'll end.
been 7 years already?
Yeah,
I guess the only other thing to point out is that there's still 40 something acres of undeveloped area in the RDA out of the 80 that's there, the 81.52. So there's still opportunity for growth. There's property out in front of the hotel. There's property behind Commercial Street, and then there's property over on the west side, kind of where the industrial park begins. So I think there's a map that kind of highlights the
yeah.
RDA boundaries. So we have potential for this ball. It kind of feels like the ball's starting to roll. It feels like the incentive is really valuable. People are doing high level investment, capital investments, which was the intent. And then that's encouraging people to occupy the buildings, where before we incentivized people with rent and things to occupy the buildings, but nobody was putting money into the buildings to make those improvements. And so hopefully it's a ball that'll just continue to roll once we get a hotel, maybe some other properties are interested in doing something on the vacant land. So seems to be starting. The train's leaving the station.
Okay, Denise, we
They
need
left
to
us
log
the
out
booth.
of here, correct, and rejoin. Okay.
Okay.
With that, I'll call this meeting adjourned. We need to log off this meeting and log back into the next meeting.